like to call to order our Mount Pleasant Public Schools Board of Education regular meeting on October 2nd, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. in the Mount Pleasant Public School cafeteria. This meeting of the Mount Pleasant Public Schools Board of Education is a meeting conducted in public, but is not a meeting of the public. There is a time for public participation during the meeting, as indicated in the agenda. The purpose of today's meeting is to conduct regular business that requires action by the board. These items may include those discussed at previous meetings or presented to the board for discussion this evening. At this time, as a courtesy, if you could please turn off or silence your cell phone and stand up for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I am now going to read our Indigenous Land Acknowledgement Statement. Mount Pleasant Public Schools is honored to acknowledge the Anishinaabe people whose traditional land we are gathered on today. To recognize the Anishinaabe people and their ancestral land is our expression of gratitude and appreciation, and a way of honoring the Indigenous people who have been living and working on this land since time immemorial, and whose land on which the Saginaw Chippewa Indian tribe have resided and will continue to reside on for centuries. We feel it is important to understand the long-standing history of this land and to seek to understand our place within that history. It's time to do a little roll call.
Melissa Isaac, Pompey, here.
William Pango here.
Evie Reed here.
Nathan Thompson here. Tim Oedeker here.
Evie Loud here.
Thank you. We have to approve our agenda. Is there a motion to approve our agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then that's to our superintendent report this evening.
Good evening, everyone. The first item under my report this evening is a conversation with our attorney, Ray Davis from Troon Law Firm. Ray has joined us via Zoom this evening, and really he's here to talk with us a little bit about his perspective on our deep dive that we are in the middle of doing with policies. I explained to Ray that we've had some different conversations about policy as opposed to law, and how we're going through a process where we're really looking deeply at each policy, which he supports. He likes that idea. And so I wanted to just make sure we had the broad overview and the perspective from the authors of our policy. So Ray, thank you for joining us. I think we have all the technical difficulties worked out, so we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. And it's great representing your district, and I hope I can answer questions that you might have. Please bear with me. I'm still having a difficult time. Are you there?
We're here. We can hear you.
Okay. I'm having a difficult time, and well, I don't know if there's a glitch at my house, but something happened there. But we'll muddle through this, and hopefully I can answer any questions that you might have about the policy service.
So I think at this point, Ray, it's not so much that we have policies. I think we're interested in your perspective on the process that we're going through, where we're looking at customizing policies potentially. And while we understand that some policies may be written in a certain way because it's what's mandated by law, but we also know there's a difference between policy and law. So if you could just share sort of a broad perspective. As you know, we've just started this process, and we have policies scheduled to review at every meeting throughout this entire school year.
Well, first of all, I think that's a great process. Your board policies are the law of the school district. We've got the laws of the state, like the Constitution, federal civil rights law. We've got the law of the state, like the revised school code. And the policies are really sort of designed to be consistent with those laws, but also to set the law of the school district And if you don't know what your laws are in your school district, if you don't know what your policies are, then it's highly likely that you will, not act consistently with those policies. So the fact that you're, I know it seems a bit painstaking, but the fact that you're reviewing each policy set, going through and imposing questions and raising issues, I think that's fantastic, because that's, really going to familiarize all of you with those policies, I think, which is very important. The policies are not true policies, they're your policies. And so you guys, can determine if you feel like within the legal parameters, you'd like to have at least a different procedure than what might be listed in the policy. We try to draft the policy to legal best practices, but then also to governance best practices, so that we, based on experience, we represent over 500 school districts in the state, and from the experience gleaned from representing the different school districts, we try to put a best practices set together, but each district is entitled to, modify those best practices within the parameters of the law to best meet, your community needs. And, we're here to, assist and facilitate with that. So, for example, I know a couple of weeks ago we received some questions from your superintendent regarding whether certain modifications to policies would be acceptable, and hopefully we gave you a quick turnaround and indicated that yes, they would. What we would probably do is point out the pros and cons of policy recommendations that might come, but as you guys then consider those pros and cons, it's your policy set, so you're free to choose what you would like to do. I will tell you, still have every other month policy implementation meetings, and you are entitled, if you want, to sit through those policy implementation meetings. We have different school districts from across the state that sit in those meetings and hear questions and concerns and ideas. And if you have, you want to learn more about your policies, you have any questions about any particular policy sets, those policy implementation meetings are good meetings to attend. You will have truant attorneys that are expert in each different subject matter section, there to answer questions for you. So for example, the 5,000 section, which is the student section, that's not my bailiwick. So if a question comes in on 5,000, I'm going to pass it along to one of our attorneys that helped draft that section. Whereas I'm much more well versed in the 4,000 series, which is the employment series, but we have different subject matter experts for each series, and you can get on those policy implementation meetings and ask questions from all the different attorneys if you so attend. And if you feel like you want to do it again 2 months later, you're having trouble sleeping and you want to record it, and you can record it and you can play it at night and we'll put you right to sleep, have it. It's a resource for you. Also, our website is a resource for you. Our website, has a lot of the most recent modifications, checklists, etc. And so, because you purchased the policy set, you have the golden key into the policy group section, where you can see all the different resources that are on our website as well. But then obviously Lucas from our office, who spearheads policies, is a resource that is easy to take advantage of too. His primary responsibility is making sure that any questions that are posed from you get answered promptly and accurately from an attorney that has subject matter knowledge in that area.
And Lucas really has already been wonderful to work with. It's been a very smooth process already, so we appreciate that.
Good.
Do board members have questions for Ray while he's here with us this evening?
Ray, I'm assuming you can hear me.
Talking, close as you can get to the mic then.
Ray, this is Tim Whitaker. I have a question. So, in general, what I'm hearing is most of our policies are based on federal statute, state statute, case law, and then best practices. So, many of them have a lot of experience and or required elements already added. So, really, we can't take them away per se, but we can just kind of modify or highlight or focus on certain areas of those policies.
Yeah, I would say you can, that generally speaking, that's accurate. And if you look at the bottom of each particular policy, you'll see a citation to either state law or federal law at the bottom of each policy that to the extent that that policy is designed to be consistent with state law or federal law, it's listed right there. You're not necessarily required to have policies that we have listed. We recommend them for different reasons. And some policies are required. We have a list of, like corporal punishment policy, required. Anti-discrimination, harassment law is required. For example, even though the is required, I suppose you wouldn't have to have an FMLA policy, though doing some would put your district at a very difficult legal disadvantage in terms of compliance with the FMLA. So while not all the policies are required, most of them are highly recommended in order to protect the best interests of the district. What we tried to do was to make sure that the policies were internally consistent. So we didn't want to have a circumstance where one policy or procedure contradicted with another. We wanted to make sure that they were very understandable, very readable, so that there was not ambiguity. Because again, these are sort of the laws of our school district, so we want them to be understandable. And we wanted to make sure that they made sense in terms of governance of your school district. So there's some policies that we just decided not to do because they weren't necessary and they created more problems than solutions. So for example, you previously had a complaint procedure policy that because of that policy, I remember having to almost go through a grievance hearing with a third-party para at your district that decided to bring a defamation claim against another employee in your district. And because that policy was there, which didn't really need to be there, you had to have that board meeting. It's those sorts of things that we chose not to populate our policy set with because we didn't think that in terms of district governance, they made sense.
One other question that I'd like to ask.
Sure.
One of the things that we've been talking about doing is to start many or some of the policies with an introductory paragraph that we are calling kind of through the lens of Mount Pleasant, or helping as people go into the details of the policy, kind of stating what our philosophy, our mission, our vision, language, introductory. What is your thoughts on that kind of structure to help our readers better understand what the overall philosophy of the district is?
I think it's possible to do. I think you probably want to put some thought into that. There is, in the 1000 series, an opportunity for a mission statement and for you to identify the purpose of the policy there. I would want to be really careful that what was being added did not contradict what was in some of the other policy language and didn't create sort of those unintended consequences that we try to avoid in our policy set. So, in our minds, there's one policy service that's way overboard that you guys used to have that is, that's almost like, the porridge is too hot. And then there's one policy set that another vendor has that is skeleton. And that's almost the porridge is too cold. And we tried to sort of hit the sweet spot. So I think if I'd be happy to look at what you guys are envisioning. If it's a title, if it's here's how it relates to our strategic. This is our strategic plan. This meets. This is our philosophy behind it. I'd want to look at it to make sure that there's no unintended consequences and no ambiguity. But yeah, we could probably work through something like that.
Thank you.
Hello, Ray. This is Melissa Isaac. Just listening to what, hi. Just listening to kind of what you've explained to us, there's 2 points that I have would like some clarity on. That each district is able to modify best practices to meet our community needs, and that truly will point out the pros and cons of the suggestions. Would that be similar to the FMLA example that you gave us? So if we want to modify something that we thought fit with our district lens or perspective, our culture here, would that be similar to the FMLA example?
Yeah, you're gonna have to help make sure that I heard your question fully, because you're bleeping in and out for me. But if your question was, will I provide honest feedback to recommendations that come in terms of your policies? I absolutely will, because I have the best interests of your district's needs at heart, based on experience. The reason we did these policies was because, I'll be honest with you, Mount Pleasant was one of the reasons, one of the districts. We were seeing throughout the state real difficult governance issues that were created by inconsistent policies, extremely ambiguous policies, or policies that imposed standards that weren't necessary. I was just dealing with a district last week where an administrator clearly violated a policy. But the policy also had in it that the superintendent is required to make administrative guidelines, and the administrator didn't do that. So the superintendent didn't do that. So first of all, why is that a requirement in your policy? There's no law that requires a superintendent to draft administrative guidelines. But if you now try to hold employee A to that standard, employee A is going to rightly say, well, hold it. You're not even holding the superintendent to that standard. How can you hold me to it? So it's those sorts of governance issues that I would really want to make sure that you guys don't unintentionally create if you veer too outside of sort of the discretionary parameters that we recommend.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And would we be able to count on Truman to give us similar feedback on the introductory statements that we mentioned?
Oh yeah, we're not a shy bunch.
Because neither are we.
So just so you all know, since our last meeting, we had 3 policies that we thought maybe we wanted to have some amendments on, or some changes, I should say. So I sent the proposed changes after our last meeting to Lucas. Lucas sent one, I think, to Ray, which was our 1301, the reviewing policies, doing that more than once. And then the other 2 he sent to another attorney because there were student issues. I spoke with that attorney today, so when we get to the part in our agenda where we're looking at those again, I'll have feedback so we can have further discussion on those 3 policies. And I have sort of put Lucas on notice that I'll be emailing him every 2 weeks on Tuesday morning with a list of our, ideas for changes and improvements, and then he will farm them out to their experts and then get them back to us. So I think we can trust them to continue to keep us moving forward at this pace.
And I just want to review three points that I want to kind of highlight as well, is that when we're making suggestions, that they are aligned throughout the policy and not contradictory to other policies, that they should be aligned with the strategic plan, and that to keep an eye out for potential governance issues when we're making recommendations. Correct?
So unfortunately, I couldn't hear you. Is that a question?
So what Melissa was stating, Ray, is that we want to make sure that when we are making any suggestions for changes to improvement or to policies, we want to make sure that they're aligned with our other policies, they're aligned with the district's strategic plan, and then they're also not creating other governance issues for our district. So those
Yeah, that's full assist. Make sure if we see something that creates an issue, we're going to point that out.
Thank you, Ray. That's all I have.
And I'll say, as Jennifer described the process that you're going through, in my mind, it's almost the best practice for districts. Some districts, it's pretty easy to implement our policies without necessarily really going through them in detail. And you guys have been doing, which I think is awesome.
Hi, Ray. This is Leading Pangle, and I think one of the reasons we can do that is having you in our partnership and allowing us to tweak and then being told if what we're doing, since we're not policy writers, does not contradict. So I think the strength is in the partnership. So I just want to thank you. I think that at least for me really reassures me that we can customize and really make these policies ours, and have those kind of guards or the railings around with you to make sure we don't get in trouble.
Sure.
Any other comments or questions for Ray?
I do have questions. You mentioned policy implementation meetings. So if you wanted to attend, can we find this on your website, or can I get this?
Kevin and I have the information for them. Kevin, Linda, Ginger, and I all attended those meetings this spring as we were looking at the policies before we brought them to you. So you certainly, anyone is welcome to attend them. We've got the information.
You can share that.
Sure.
And then the other one is similar. You also mentioned your website as a resource. And so there's a gated access to that section.
And we can get that for you as well.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
I'm good.
I think we're good, Ray. Thank you very much for your time this evening. We really appreciate
Thank
it.
you. My pleasure. You guys have it.
Thank you too. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
So we'll move on to the next item under my report. I just need a quick second here to get our text set up. There we go. It looked just like Joe promised it would. Okay, the next item on our report this evening is an Eagle Scout project presentation from Thomas Ferguson, and I'll introduce Thomas to you all. Thank you for being here, Thomas.
Is this good?
Yeah, it's great.
I'm Thomas Ferguson. I am a student here in Mount Pleasant High School. I am also a Life Scout in Troop 604. If you have any questions, I probably missed a few things in this. Feel free to ask them. So this is just the Google definition of what an Eagle Scout project is, but what I think it actually is it's your final leadership thing to show that you've learned how to lead this project. You're supposed to do your fundraising, you're supposed to give back to the community, and you're supposed to organize volunteers and some other stuff that's on. But it's the last leadership opportunity for the Scouts before
I want to remove these bushes around the sign there, repaint the sign and the flagpole, also do a refinish on the sign, refresh the mulch that's there, and plant those bushes. So why I chose this in particular, a big thing for me when I was looking for a project was that the community, it needed to be wanted by the community. It didn't just need to be something that I could put my name on, that it was easy for me to do, I could do it. It needed to be wanted. So I went to a few other organizations, Parks and Rec, tiny homes, but Mr. Gilbert brought this forward to me, and I thought it was something that I could take ownership of and that was achievable for me to be. So what the goals I want to do on here, I want to make a sign physical. That's number one priority. I want to add a memorial plaque. I'll ask more stuff about that on the next slide. And then plant rose bushes instead of, those are actually Eurasian cranberry bushes. And so the memorial status, when I talked to Mr. Gilbert, he had told me about how there was a memorial service at Chippewa Tribe where 3 students had passed away in various accidents. So I will have to reach out to the tribe and figure out how to do that respectfully. So the phases that I'm looking for my project, outreach, that's me fundraising and reaching out to the tribe to see how I'm gonna do this project. For fundraising, I've already had someone say that they will donate some money. I do plan on applying to some grants, and I am looking at about a $500 project. Gather resources. That would happen through the winter. So that's purchasing everything that's not flowers. Flowers will come. I'm ready for them, and I don't accidentally kill them in my garage. In project time, clear the bushes, refurbish the flagpole sign, and mulch. Then next to planting the rose bushes and the memorial service, depending on what the tribe says, when I reach out to them, those might be swapped, those might happen at the same time. For when I want to do this, I think as soon as I get the spring. And then it should be. Thank you for listening. If you have questions, ask them now or if you can.
Does anyone have any questions for Thomas?
I think it's a great project. I know some people are excited about the project. So how are you going to implement all this work? What is your plan on? Is it a solo position? Or are you going to get a team of people? And if so, how can you do that if there are others who wish to join you, get in contact with you? And are you looking for donors? How is there other ways that they can get in contact with you if there are donors?
I haven't thought about that too much yet. So volunteers I'll definitely be looking for later on, and I'll try and reach out to as much as I can. And then fundraising probably the same thing, reach out as much as I can.
Thank you.
I noticed that you had your email at the end too, so would that be
Yeah.
a good way for people to reach out if they were interested?
Yep, that would definitely be helpful.
I think it's a great project too. I live not too far from here, and I have to admit, I didn't even know there was a sign behind those bushes. And so I think it'll be exciting to see that, and I know it mean a lot, especially to people in that area. So I think you put a lot of thought into this. It seems like a good idea, and I like Tim's suggestion too. There could be people that want to help out, and I know it's part of you spearheading it, but that just could be a neat picture too of people come together. I also also like too how your sensitivity to reach out to the tribe and finding out what would be best for the memorial, that really aligns with a lot of the things we do and value, and so thanks for being sensitive to that.
I also, I was at Rosebush Elementary when I was younger, back in the 1900s. And so it makes me happy that it's going to get some love there. And, you know, your project has the ability, well, I think it's already happening, of bringing community together. And that is not easy to do. So this is a powerful project, and I appreciate that you're taking it on. And if you can think of anything, I will definitely send you an email and communicate that way. Thank you.
I want to thank you, Thomas, for doing this as well. And then I have one request. Can we get a picture when you're done?
Yeah.
And let us know if you have some kind of event, or memorial service or whatever that looks like. Let us know so that we can copy for you. Thank you.
I did explain to Thomas before our meeting that we would hear his presentation now, and then under our new business this evening, the board has the opportunity to officially approve Thomas's project. So to only do that just a little bit. Thank you very much. And our next presentation this evening is an update from Mount Pleasant High School. So I will let John or Kristen or Lisa or somebody introduce who's all here and what will they have.
There's the three of us administrators, but then we also have some help from a teacher for part of our presentation, and then also student for part of it. So let Mrs. Willie get started.
All right. Hi, thank you for having us. I'm going to get started because I need to be over at Dry Red in a few minutes with your son. Okay. So I'm going to start, I think, Jen, is it back one with the acres or no? No? Okay, we'll just go to this one first. Is this? Oh, right there, right there. So last year, you guys, 2022 was the red and blue. It's 2023, and I know it's the same time frame, but we still have a lot of improvements that we want to make with our new admin team, but I think this can show you that we're making some great changes. The minors, so in case you're wondering what a minor is, I think the next slide. Okay, there it is. Minors would be anything that we just log in Illuminate, okay? I mean, everything goes in Illuminate, but then the big majors go into Power School also. So we have like, dishonesty, the cell phones, class disruption, but the majors would be fighting, vaping, marijuana, other things like that. So again, it's kind of getting better. We just want it to always get better, better, better. So just wanted to give you a little update on that. Okay, our next slide. Okay, so now we're back. That's okay. There we go. So last year, and again, this might have happened in the past, but Kristen and I are new to our team. Student Senate, a few of the members would eat lunch with all of the admin. One admin each month, so we did this, okay? And they're telling us at this meeting some things that they want to change, improve, what can we do in this building. So last year, they were begging at almost every meeting, can we please get an extra minute on the passing time? And so we kind of talked about it, and it was 5 minutes, and we did increase it to 6 minutes, and we haven't noticed any extra fights or anything, so we think we're good, and then that kind of gave them a little win. Something else that they wanted last year was in each of the bathrooms, many of the bathrooms, to have a little box or something where the girls could grab sanitary napkins or products or whatever without having to come to the office and ask, or going to the counseling office and ask if they felt comfortable about that. So they're in all of the bathrooms. And then we want to thank our students big time for always presenting at board meetings. We love that, just like you guys said that last time. Even if we're not here, I promise you, you're watching it, okay? So we watch each meeting. So I just want to address a couple little things. Mason presented last board meeting about the paper towel dispensers. So then Kristen gave him a little task. Why don't you go and take inventory? There are only 2 that we need to add those to. So I think he was excited about his little job, and we were so excited that he presented and took care of that. The 7:30 opening time, I think that was Braden Lewis. Kristen actually went to Braden and kind of explained where we were coming from, our thought process was. We've always opened the doors at 7:25 for students to come in. And then the buses used to drop off at the high school first, then go to the middle school. Well, this year, they wanted to go to the middle school first and come here later, so we thought, we'll do 7:35. So 7:25 to 7:35. Day one, we knew that was not okay. So then we're like, okay, compromise 7:30, and it really has been fine. And when Rowan spoke about they can just hurry up a little bit, like, she's kind of right. They really are fine. And then I just wanted to let everybody know publicly that if it's raining or extra cold, we do bring them in the student entrance, and we've had 2 rain dates where we just bring them in and they're fine. It works out well. And our last one, parking passes. For as long as I've been here, I believe we've charged for the majority of those years, maybe a year or 2 if they don't charge or whatever. But we want to know who's in our parking lot, so we have stickers for those kids. The last several years, it's been $30. And that would be 10 a trimester. This year we thought, let's go 5 a trimester, so $15. And we kind of had like nobody really complained last year that I can remember. And then this year people are like, why are we paying? And why are we paying 15? And I'm like, we reduced it. And we thought that. But so we definitely are open to discussion about that for next year. We did ask GI Tech because I believe that's what Ty said in his presentation last week, or last board meeting. The GI Tech, they do not charge. So maybe we need to meet and talk about that and make it nice and fair for everybody. So I wanted all of these students to know that we listen, we care, and we are trying to make it the best place for them as well.
Lisa, can you talk about the student senate lunches that are happening this year as well?
Yep, so I think Mary Kay's already had one, and almost has it. I have one next week. It's usually, last year we did Wednesdays, this year we're doing Tuesdays. So I'm just gonna make up a number because I have no idea. Student senate has 40 kids on it, okay? It totally might be a different number. But so 3 or 4 kids eat lunch with an admin every single month, and they just keep rotating. So like Mary Kay, John, Lisa, Kristen, Mary Kay, John, Lisa, Kristen, and 3 or 4 different kids. So they all get to eat with us. So we take that 30, 40 minutes, eat pizza from Herbs, okay, spices, and then discuss anything that's kind of on their mind. Like we want an extra minute, or we want, I don't know, no school tomorrow, or whatever it is. I mean, whatever is on their mind, and then we're like, listen, this is what we can kind of talk about. This is absolutely a no-go. This is a, yeah, we'll talk about it. So. Okay, let's see, did that answer what you? Yeah. Sure.
Sorry. One thing about the opening time is we have so many students, it's a big building with a lot of kids. As soon as we let them in, they're in. And we have to make sure the building is chaperone, supervised, all of the things that you want. And so our hall staff and things like that, we have to try to stagger time. So we have people after school, we have people before school. So that's really the deciding factor in the thing of how much, we have to make sure everything's safe while the kids are here. So we'd love to let them in at 7 o'clock. In this day and age, it's not really an option. So like I said, that's where the 7:30 time kind of starts.
It's how to drive, Ms. Davis. I want to speak a little bit before I introduce Ms. Packer here, but if you look at our discipline and behavior rates, they have dropped quite a bit. And I think that this lady will tell you a lot about capturing kids' hearts, which was our professional development that we did across the district. And I can tell you in 17, I think this is 18 years, one of the best PDs I've ever done. And she had to trim down her speech a lot because she's so passionate. So I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Packer, who teaches Spanish here.
Yes, I am Emily. This is my 2nd year in Mount Pleasant, but my 13th year in education in various roles. And by far, this is the best of my career, hands down. And I attribute most of that to capturing kids' hearts. And that's not a joke. It's really, I feel like I'm a walking testament to this framework. So really quickly, there are some slides. You can look at them yourselves, but I want to share some things that most of our teachers are doing that are part of the framework. One of those is co-authoring a social contract with their students about agreeable behaviors and the ways that we treat one another in class. Most teachers have done that in most of their classrooms.
And another big win that most of our teachers are doing is I think significantly more teachers, and I think our principals will agree, that more teachers are spending more time in the hallways and greeting students at the door to have a welcoming face and a quick emotional check-in when they come in at the door. I will say that that extra minute is a huge reason why I can do that as a teacher. Last year it was difficult for me to do that, so I'm really grateful for those teachers because now I get a bathroom break and I get to say hi to my students. But some other things that teachers are doing, they're implementing various lessons that are on the online library that include trust building and community building. Many of us are starting our classes with a time called Good Things where we share in joyous moments and practice empathy for one another. Some teachers are practicing contract raters where students evaluate how well the classes adhere to the social contract throughout the class period. Or in my class, we did it after a substitute, and my substitute also rated the students on their social contract behavior. And then a lot of teachers the part we're working on is empowering students to take an active role in managing the classroom behavior. So that includes nonverbal signs such as timeout, chequeo, well, sorry, that's Spanish, check, or behavior check, and also fouls. So we can talk more about that. You are welcome to reach out to me if you have more questions about it because there's a lot going on in this framework and I'm still learning myself, but it's really powerful. I just want to add, the impact in my class this year is really unbelievable. I am different this year. My class is different this year. Students talk about class differently, students talk about school differently, and I see students enjoying being in my room on a level that wasn't the same as before. And I think that all of this team building we did, I spent time in English doing team building before we spoke in Spanish. And now I have students, actually this year, 100% of my students spoke in the target language voluntarily within the first couple weeks of class. And that's not common. It's not common for students to do that because they're so nervous, but because we spent that time to create a safe environment, I think it made a place where students who don't normally speak felt like they could speak. Now, what teachers need to work on still with this, and it's really just a matter of having more consistent training and making sure that time is provided to do this, is more teachers are interested in the discipline model that comes with capturing kids' hearts, which I believe is respectful and culturally responsive. So I'd love to see more of that throughout a school year and not just at the beginning of school PD. But nonetheless, no matter what happens with capturing kids' heart, how long the district maintains it, any teacher who goes through this training, if you're implementing it to the best as you can, we're seeing huge impacts in just the classroom level, whether or not my colleagues are doing it. But when my colleagues do it, I notice the students are coming to my room more prepared and with those skills. So I just believe that if we get to a point where most of our teachers in our building are doing this most of the time, we're going to see a huge quality of life improvement in our adolescents and the teachers and the staff and the administrators who support them. And then imagine that building to building. If we could commit to this at a district level for years to come, where our teachers and new incoming teachers get good at this, I think it would be impossible for our community not to notice the changes in our students. And I just think that it would be really cool and really powerful to be a part of that. So if you have questions, you're welcome to reach out to me. I live in Midland, so let's plan a Zoom meeting. Or you're also welcome to visit my classroom if you're interested as well. So thank you for your time.
Next up here, we're going to have Mr. Hiley here tell a little bit of Orange Shirt Day. I do want to tell a story about him though. So last spring we had a powwow, and I went out there to be with our kids, and I left my keys on the table where they had nice little, paper things over top, and we were all eating fry bread and so on. And then someone needed my help, and somehow they wrapped up all the paper and stuff with my keys in it. And it was one or two students who helped me dig through the trash to find my keys. And so, like I said, he was a hero that day for me. And so, but here's Riley talking a little bit about Orange Shirt Day.
My name is Freddie Hiley. I'm part of the second on Squad A track, and I'm going to talk about Orange Shirt Day. So Orange Shirt Day is September 30th. Mount Pleasant Public Schools will be acknowledging the day on October 9th. Orange Shirt Day began in 2013. Phyllis Webstad is a residential school survivor. She wore a blue orange shirt on her first day of the residential school. The shirt was stripped from her. The orange shirt is now become a symbol of hope and reconciliation. Residential schools were wrong. Every child matters. Orange Shirt Day has created a platform for education based on historical facts and survivor stories. Wearing an orange shirt on September 30th generates more awareness and opportunities for consultation.
Thank you, Freddie, and thank you, Ms. Packer, for presenting. My next slide is kind of a district shout out. In the next couple of probably days, I know our school just sent this out. We're sending out family school climate surveys. And we're just asking our community members as well as our staff and students, they'll all fill out a climate survey. And I know as they come in, I'm kind of a data junkie, I've been reading them all already, and just looking at the improvements in our school since last year has just really warmed my heart, and it makes me very excited, and then also nitpicky on what we can continue to improve. So we usually look at this as a building level, then as a district level, and then we see if there's some common threads, and we look at how to improve year to year. So I encourage people to fill that out. The next slide, I believe, has to deal with Michigan Department of Ed just created this web-based link called Pathfinder. I know I emailed this out to all of our students earlier, I think at the end of last week. And as I was doing some hunting, I did some screenshots for you just to take a look at, but it's a one-stop shop. So if students are looking at places to get a job, there's a little bulleted list for them there. On the next slide, you'll see how they could serve their community or country in some financial aid pieces, which I know could be very overwhelming for families. And on the next slide, you will see that maybe I'm not sure what I want to do, which is perfectly okay, right? So how would I assess my skills, kind of look at my strengths or what I can improve upon or job skills that I would have in the future. Also, how to get that early college credit in high school, which John will be talking about later, and some additional training resources. So I'm going to continue to push bits and pieces out in our WAG because I think this is super important for high school students. I also want to share this resource with you. Another thing that's kind of near and dear to my heart lately is this family engagement night, which I know we have invited some of our MPHS board members to attend. And I think you might be passing out some cider and donuts and mingling a little bit. Everybody's welcome though. And if you didn't get the invite, you're more than welcome. But Family Engagement Night, this is new this year. It's 5:30 to 7:30 at MPHS. Also across town, we're having conferences at the middle school. So to the right, we kind of created a schedule. So if there were parents with multiple children at our school, they could follow the blue or gold schedule. And you could rotate to your child's classes about 5 minutes per class, and the teachers are going to talk about their curriculum, their content. It's marking period 2, so they're still in those classes, and they get to know a little bit more about that class. If you are all caught up with your kids' classes and you just want some extra resources, we provided an alternate menu for you. We have Mid-Michigan College, Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe College. We also have CMU there. We have some anti-vaping sessions. We have, what else do we have up there? Oh, sorry, Michigan Works. It's been a minute since I looked at this. Community mental health is there. We have our counselors are going to do some pieces on FAFSA. And so we have all of these other pieces there. So if you do not want to follow your kid's schedule, you could go and get some additional resources. And to get you in the door, we also have some awesome raffle prizes every couple of minutes. For yearbooks, for example, some punch cards for iRides, some things that we know that our families would like. So we're excited to have people here October 18th. If you could join us, we'd love to see you. And there's cider and donuts in the cafeteria too. And I'll turn it over to John for some dual enrollment.
Just wanted to give you some updates of what our kids are doing here. And you can see we included some dual enrollment numbers there. You can see we have some going to CMU, we have some going to mid, some going to the tribal college. The most popular classes that they're choosing are things like psych and sociology, communication, English, and math. It kind of gives you a little breakdown there. I'm not going to go into it all, but like I said, for the kids who choose to take mid classes, it's generally free for them, same with the tribal college. CMU, there is a cost, and it's based on prorated, their student funding that we're receiving from them. So you can look at that. Go to the next slide. I want to give you some other updates there. This one's talking about, if you're wondering how our kids do on a lot of these different things. And so this one's a kind of a chart since 2000, the National Merit Scholars here, and you can see we've done pretty well over the years. Like I said, having some selections every single year, which is difficult. I mean, when you look through the book each year, there's some schools that have never had one. And, like I said, we generally get one just about every year. You see we've had some years as high as 5. And so our kids do pretty well on those top things. You can see we had 3 this year that were on the commendation award for it. We honored them at school last week, I think it was. And so you can see our 3 there. Some other things that I kind of wanted to touch on here is some people wonder, what happens to our kids after and so on. And so we kind of put, this is from this year's, or last year's group there, 50% for 4-year colleges, another 34% 2-year colleges or trade schools, and then the rest are going into the workforce. You can also see kind of the grade distribution for the class of 2023 there. You can see we have a good portion over 4 point. We have a good group in that 3.5 to 4. So you can see kind of the breakdown there. And then sometimes people want to know, how do we compare like in the SAT with both national and state? And you can see we're considerably above both national and state levels for not only math and reading and writing, but then the composite course overall. And so, like I said, our kids are doing pretty well here. And so we're proud of them. They're scoring well on tests. They're doing well. They're National Merit Scholars. They're going to college. They're going to trade schools. So we're pretty proud of our kids right now. We'll just end with a little bit on the thing. You can see our students of the month there. I'm not going to name them all there, but those are for the ones for August. And on the right there is our homecoming court. And I want to say we had a wonderful dance. Like I said, not only did we win the football game on Friday night, but we had, like I said, band performed. They were wonderful. Everybody who was a part of that did a fantastic job. And then we brought in about 750 to 800 kids for the dance. You've ever seen 750 and 800 kids dancing? It's a lot. It was warm too, so we have to say that because the day was very, very hot. Normally we can open outside things so we can bring a little bit more in, but I don't know if the snow cone line ever ended. Saturday night I felt bad for the advisors that had to run that. Kids, like I said, had a great time and were extremely well behaved, and so it was a lot of fun.
Senator, any questions?
Do you have any questions for us?
I do have a couple of questions.
Yep.
One, I want to say thank you for the passion that you shared with capturing kids' hearts. So, the orange shirts, are those for sale?
Yes. We have some extra too, so if you contact me, I'll make sure I get them.
Okay. Really like seeing those.
Yeah.
And then, local colleges, what was considered local colleges for that
For
open house?
Good question. I did the 3 that were closest to us, and I just invite, but if you have one in your mind, we still got 2 weeks, so feel free to let me know, and I'd be more than happy to reach out.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
One thing that it's important to note with our orange shirts, those were actually designed by 2 Mount Pleasant High School students last year. So it's great. It's been a great project all the way around.
Any other questions?
I have some. I started as major and minor discipline leaders. Of course, I have to just ask a few questions. when you say comparison between 2023 and 2022, I know we haven't finished 2023, but was that the data you presented exactly about the same time?
Exactly.
That's what I thought I said. Can you attribute the reduction? Because you have a large reduction in your majors by, I mean, you went down like significantly, about 2/3. Is there something that you know, yes, or is it a number of things that you may have done that lead to this?
Probably, I think Emily's probably thinking it, but I do think how the Capturing Kids' Hearts has definitely being proactive with positivity and being at the door has been a game changer. I mean, we see it in the hallway and just our interactions are totally different with our students. And so I'm doing this every month, kind of looking at the data. I've looked at our failure list, also attendance data. Kids are engaged, they're going to be at school, right? And so I look forward to seeing this over the year and how it progresses, for sure.
I really do want to add to it because I had mentioned that continued training in the discipline model would be really essential. My number of office referrals and grade sheets and contacts homes has reduced partially because I'm working on trying to implement it for the first time. It's challenging for a newbie, but what it does is it keeps the resolution in the classroom, and it doesn't have to go into the office unless the student refuses to engage in the process. So it really empowers the student and the teacher in a positive, respectful way.
So that was actually my follow-up question. Is that what you meant by the discipline model of the Capturing Heart? Is that keeping it, like dealing with it in a classroom?
So they have a full model within their framework that they have this Excel model. This is, I probably feel like it's more, I don't even know if I can tell. Engage, so you engage with the student, or no. You engage with the student, and then you explore the situation, so you kind of dig in a little bit deeper. You communicate, which is either your lesson or whatever you're trying to come across to them with the situation. Excel.
I know.
There's another E. You see, we're learning. We're definitely learning. I have this on the wall in the back of my classroom to help me figure it out, and then we launch it again. But when you're in the middle of a situation with students, depending on if it's a misbehavior or if it's a disrespect issue, there's a series of questions that are research back for teachers to follow. But it's challenging, and you have to watch your tone. So there's a lot of things that go into it that really take practice. And because we are bound by our local contract, we also, our training was shorter, right, than most other things that they would do. And so I think that while we were introduced to this model, we didn't get all the practice in it. And so I think that we're looking forward to that in the future.
Then, kind of to go on with this, it sounds the way you're presenting it that it does it matches well with our restorative practice model, and so you don't see it conflicting. I mean, from what you're saying, it does seem like it.
I think each building is at a little bit of a different step. Some buildings have worked with Jim Harris, some the restorative conversation. So our next step is we've worked with our process champions and we're going to implement those things. But we're definitely at the beginning. I mean, every day I go to that website, there's so much there for us. And so we're digging in, and I think as administrators, modeling it at staff meetings, on Wednesday is important. And so I think what Emily said, we just don't want to lose this fire. It's awesome.
I think providing students with a sense of belonging too. I mean, I think that's any time, and you'll see that in the majors. The minors, kids are going to be kids sometimes. They're going to be, do the little things, mess around, things like that. The majors are usually ones that show that they're struggling with something, and I think us providing more counseling supports, I think with every teacher taking in greater vested interest, and it even started before Capturing Kids' Heart, but also then, like I said, giving them a sense of belonging, a sense of say, and all the clubs we have, and all of those kind of things. I really think kids feel like they fit in, and so it's the major type of things I think we've got a reduction in those.
That makes perfect sense. Keep going on the discipline. I would love to see at some point, it doesn't have to be now, maybe next year's presentation when you update and kind of start preparing, if we could split the majors with the kind of what you know, I call it the violent stuff, the actual fighting, the possession of weapons, like the stuff that typically would lead to, you know, a strong disciplinary result compared to, because in your measures there's quite a few things, compared to the ones that are not quite, that are not like, you know, physical contact. And I know in the literature for things, that's often how they do it is the fighting, the hurting, compared to the misbehaving, kind of everything else. And I'm not saying that in your measures there isn't some, you know, pretty strong misbehaving, but they don't result in physical.
And just give you a quick glimpse of what it's going to look like. It's going to be vaping, it's a very big line, and violence and things like that is very small.
Yeah.
So.
I think seeing it would be powerful for our community so that we can see kind of what that breakdown looks like. My guess is that the community member would worry about the physical stuff. And I'm not saying that vaping is great, don't get me wrong, but to me it does fit in it's a little bit of a different category, if that makes sense.
That's easy enough.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you so much.
I just have to recognize all the work that you're doing. You definitely see the impact when you go on a homecoming parade. You see the number of students there. You see the families there. When you go to the game. There's a lot of things that I've noticed, and you see that impact of this culture shifting. And just my ad hoc survey, I'm getting that feedback. Everyone's saying, what a great start of the year. Everyone's saying, oh, it's great, right? They're not stressed. So it's very interesting. So kudos to you guys. Thank you. Because your work is actually, I'm seeing it and feeling it too, and I'm not in the building, so I don't have high school. So, thank you.
Thank you for allowing us to do our jobs and make changes and all of those. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll second that. It's fantastic to see everything that's happening. I mean, hearing about the empowerment of the students as part of classroom management, I think it was very powerful. I just wanted to follow up at the very beginning, and I know that Lisa had to step out. And so are we going to add those paper towels to the 2 bathrooms that are missing?
Yes, Mason has a detailed list for me, and then we're gonna go and check them out. And also, I think at the athletic bathrooms too, I noticed when I was at homecoming too, and we'll definitely take care of that, yeah. But I think he was super excited to be part of that, and it really empowered him, so.
Please let him know the 7-year-old will not use the dryers now because
I know he's having it changed. And that's a great thing about this is I think it empowers kids to talk, and there are some things we can change pretty easily with just a conversation, or we didn't even think about it. And so that's nice to hear.
I have a couple more still, Ms. Teresa. Can you clarify for our community? So I think I heard it, that when there is bad weather, that the doors do open earlier, right? We don't let the students in the pouring rain, but then they just stay within the certain hallways, right? Is my understanding.
So I think there was twice. It was like really, really bad rain, and so what we do is in the vestibule here and over there, we were able to kind of have enough staff to be able to keep kids in there when it's really inclement. But I think the middle school does very similar thing, you know, bad weather. A lot of kids bring umbrellas or rain jackets, but yes, we evaluate that pretty quickly when I'm in the parking lot waiting for people in. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. And I have my last one. Sorry. I really appreciate that we have sanitary products in all the bathrooms, that the female bathrooms. I wonder if we could stretch it and put it in all the bathrooms, gender wide, no matter the gender, even if they don't get used as much. I think that would be, and it would comply with what we're trying to do to the policies. And so if we could, that would be fantastic.
Yep, it definitely is pretty easy to order. I do know we have some outside counseling office too in the admin office, but we could definitely explore that and just make sure that they're in eyesight. That's the biggest thing, so people know. So thank you.
They're currently in all gender neutral bathrooms.
Right, yeah. That's great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much. And so the next item on my report is just a recognition that we wanted to be able to share with the board. We received correspondence from the Michigan school business officials to share with us that Heather Prigo in the business office has earned the business office specialist certification. And that's a certification that is sort of above and beyond, and we always make sure that we recognize our hardworking staff for doing that. So we want to congratulate and thank Heather for her additional work there. Next on our report, we will move into policy review. And so the way we structured the agenda was to start with the 4,000 policies, if that makes sense to everyone, as opposed to going through, well, and then after that, we can talk about the 3 policies that we visited at our last meeting. So let me just pull these out. And I'll just go through them, and then if we have an area where we want to pause and have deeper conversation, we can do that, okay? And if not, we'll just move on to the next one. So the first policy, so these are all focused on, 4100s are focused on employee rights and responsibilities. So the first policy, 4101, which is non-discrimination, so it's equal employment opportunity. And again, you can see if you turn, this is a 2.5 to 3 page policy, and you can see several sightings there, as Ray mentioned, that tie right back to federal law and some law in the revised school code regarding this policy. Any questions or topics of conversation for this policy?
I did have a question when I was reading it because it refers to the employee or employment compliance officer, and that's a new title to me. Can you give us some information on that?
So anything in regards to employment compliance would go through human resources, so that it would be our officer for any of those things. So when you look at Title IX, harassment, employee rights, any of those things all go through the human resources office, and Linda would be the initial contact for any of those processes.
Awesome. That definitely answers a lot of the comments that I had throughout the document. Is there a way to, how can we make that clear to people who may be referring to the policy that that's where they would go, or who they would go to?
So typically, we wouldn't name an individual, we would name the position.
Right.
So I guess, is there a section, Melissa, where you think we should add that in?
So it refers specifically to the process of you would file a complaint with the employment compliance officer. And so then.
Oh, I see, so like at the, under B, the bottom of page 2?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, like, is there.
So could we even just say, employees with questions about compliance with this policy and applicable laws should contact the superintendent or the employment compliance officer, comma, which is the assistant superintendent for human resources.
I believe that was, yeah, I think
Something like that, just
yeah.
added in?
Yes.
I have a quick question. Don't we appoint every year the HR associate position to be in that role? Is that one of our appointments?
That is one of the discussion points that we verify every year, but I agree that it's probably pretty easy to put this in policy because that's not going to change. And I mean, just like it says here in the sentence, when all else fails, you contact the superintendent, right? So they're both positions are there. I guess I'm not sure, Tim, exactly what we, in the organizational meeting, exactly what we appoint.
I think we have to do Title IX.
Yeah.
I think it's just the Title IX, where the compliance, there was multiple things that we went through today that the compliance person was in that role.
Okay. Well, we can easily add that.
One other question is, aren't we required to have postings in many of our schools and have that as our
Yes.
staffing? And those postings say compliance officer or HR or something like that.
And Linda makes sure our posters are up to date every year. She finds creative ways we don't always have to buy new posters. So Melissa, would that be good if we just added that in that section?
I would say so, just to kind of make it more helpful for staff. Hopefully they never have to, but if they do, then they'll know where to go or who to go to.
I mean, some of the concerns I had, this also answers that. that, and I see that there's quite a few comments after mine on our table. But it was the conflict, or the conflicts that may arise if we're looking specifically for this policy. I don't think it's the case for the others. If for an equal employment opportunity, if the compliance officer is the same person as the person hiring, well, that creates a weird situation. But I do see we also state or superintendent,
Right.
so I'm guessing that's enough. And I know, so that answers it.
That's why, for our system of checks and balances, we always have multiple
Yeah, that's
levels
good.
and multiple people that, the complaint can be like.
So I think that part answers my own questions.
Any other questions on that first policy?
I think just going back to what the lawyer had said and Melissa had reiterated is just that our policies aren't contradicting each other. So again, maybe this is, I tried to come up with some examples, but if we're not discriminating, that lists all the different things, might there be, maybe it's a special assembly or a celebration that maybe a staff, when against something, I don't know, a faith thing or culturally, is there a way that they could opt out, that it wouldn't be discriminatory towards them to not participate? And I don't know if this is the best part, but I'm just trying to think of, we don't want any of our policies to be contradictory, just kind of in that thought process.
So maybe
I said it eloquently.
I think I understand what you're trying to say. I think we can keep that in mind as we read the personnel policies, because this is on equal employment. And so what you're saying is maybe practices in the classroom, like what to implement, which I know have come up before. And so maybe as we keep reading the 4000s, see is there an area where that isn't clarified. But I didn't feel like I read anything related to that for today. Does that make sense? In that section of policies, because this one, my understanding is, at least for 4101, is purely agreement. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's why I wasn't sure if it was the.
So we can keep that in our head and kind of see as we're reading, next week. I think we have a couple weeks in personnel. There's quite a few 4000s. We can see if there's an area that answers that question that you have.
I think because we've read all these before, it's like, I think it's coming.
Yes.
But it's not.
It's not this one.
Yeah.
He's not this set. So I'm good with this one too. I'm looking on our table if there's anything else.
So then we'll move on to 4102, anti-harassment, including sexual harassment.
I had some if anybody does. I was wondering, and so it's just like what we've seen, if we could add a starting statement. And so I put a suggestion in the table. I'm not attached to any particular wording. It's fairly vague, but it's MPPS is committed to providing all personnel with a safe and supporting working environment in which all members of the school community are treated with respect. And so the same thing is kind of setting the tone right before we go into the actual policy set. I don't know if anybody has some comments.
I like that idea. I would probably use some of the wording from the Commissioner Vision statement to make sure that that's aligned.
So if there are multiple policies where we feel like that sort of introductory statement would fit, perhaps what we could do is make a list of those policies and then spend some time crafting that statement so that it is reflective of our mission or vision, those kinds of things. And then we could do a kind of a bulk, proposal to Truman and say, okay, this is our introductory statement and we want to add this in the front of the following 10 policies or whatever. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I feel like on the ones, I don't know, I felt like this one needed it. And the next one, the whistleblower, I felt the same way, and I did a suggestion for wording as well. The others, it didn't bug me as much, but I'm very open. I think, more in my opinion, that as long as we don't contradict ourselves.
I would just have a question with it. I'm not opposed to that at all. I'm wondering though, kind of something that Ray said earlier today made me wonder with this. With the first section being kind of about our general policies and just the district views, how is it different, or I guess, could you guys help me understand a little bit of why those, let's say 10 would need it differently than the whole document?
Yeah, no, and I can tell you my experience, but I feel free for anybody to jump in. That actually became to be more obvious when I was looking at other districts. So I spent some time when we started 2 weeks ago, and I can't remember, I think, I'm not sure you were here, but I was looking at them, I looked at 10 different districts, a little bit of everything in Michigan, and what I was finding is the ones that didn't have any of these little statements at the beginning, and you just start with the policy that's really based on law, that was very codified wording, felt very different when I was reading them than the ones that had that sentence. And it actually surprised me how much it changed my lens. Like just looking at that, and it was an intent of kind of what I'm reading, like, just we want to support all. Kind of that kind of very broad. And then every district that was doing that had a slightly different wording, and it was never very long. It was, kind of a sentence or two. But it had a large impact on me as a reader, and it made me think that matters. And that is one area that we do have control over. So that would be my intent in adding something like this. My guess is, I know how I use policy. I never read from the start, right? And I love that it's searchable, so I search, and then it pops up. So I'm not going to go read the mission, and I'm guessing our community would do the same. While they can go read and find the mission, they're going to be searching specific bits, and then maybe miss our bigger attempts as
Just one comment on that, I think, is with the introductory, you just have to be a little careful because there's a lot of vague words.
Yep.
Vague words open things up, like safe. There was a lot of words that aren't defined here and or case law, which opens up the door where if this has employees will have the opportunity to work in an atmosphere free from unlawful harassment, which includes, right? Where if say we want a house with beautiful flowers and everything, and well, you didn't give me beautiful flowers, so I have an action against you because flowers were not beautiful. So that's one thing that I'm a little concerned sometimes with our introductory phrase is we're introducing soft words that don't have legal ramifications or are hard to define, which opens it up even further.
I agree, and that's why I love having children as partners. Because to me, if they weren't there, that's exactly where we're going, and I'd be afraid to touch. And having them in that partnership that will be able to tell us, yeah, don't put that word, you'll put yourself up, makes me feel so much better. And so I would, and we can change the word safe. Again, I said I'm not really married to any specific wording, but I do like the softening that brings, and then maybe we just modify that statement a little bit.
And I agree, so even though the policies are total, right, if I'm a person looking for something, I'm going to go to the index and jump right to that policy and totally ignore everything else because that's dealing with my issue.
So are we thinking that we would have different introductory statements on different policies, or are we thinking that we would craft one introductory statement that might go on multiple policies?
I think by the way that some of these read specifically when you're going through the sections, I think it requires. Some of them are very, like William said, codified, and there are ways to make them reflective of Mount Pleasant Public Schools culture. Also keeping in mind that when we do that, we do have legal support in giving us very honest feedback on this word is going to open it up for all these other things, which is our responsibility to make sure it doesn't happen when we're doing that. I don't think that all of them require, from what I've seen, and I think my feedback has been like, yep, this is pretty standard. This one could use some additional introduction or whatever direction that we're taking that, this one could be further clarified. There's going to be different bits of feedback, but at the end of the day, I want to ensure that we are reflecting Mount Pleasant Public Schools culture, or what we strive for with our culture, while also supporting our legal responsibility as well.
So I think to your question, there probably will be different introductory that are more aligned to what the subject matter is, much like the free speech one. You know, we encourage that behavior, however, we need to have structures in place to control that, like, and this wouldn't be that language wouldn't necessarily work.
So for instance, in the set that we were reviewing for tonight, there was 12 policies, and I think we added in our notes statements for 2 of them.
Just to clarify, based on what we've seen so far, it shouldn't be a ton of them. There might be a handful.
So is everyone comfortable with the introductory statement that Eileen read earlier, or do we need to discuss that or change or add to that?
I think it might be worth thinking on it just a little bit more, because I like how it sounds. I'm holding the tension of I like how it sounds and what Tim also said, that we don't want to open it up to something, kind of the example the lawyer gave today. So is that possible that we could maybe, for the sake of time, not necessarily sit here and tweak in this moment? Or
I mean, if we went longer, the issues that we debated on January 1st and May 2.
May I offer something?
Yeah, please.
So again, based off of what you did with me and trying to think about, the statement that I'm thinking might be easier would be Mount Pleasant Public Schools is committed to providing all personnel with a working environment in which all members of the school community are I need to come up with a phrase. Is treated with respect is a very broad term, but I don't know enough about the space to say whether that's okay or not. Does that make sense?
And I mean, we can also submit like this. So what you did is remove the adjectives, safe and supportive. That for you would maybe opening us up. And so maybe we submit it without those two and then see which one says. And if they think that are treated with respect opens us up, I'm sure they'll tell us.
Yeah, and they may come back and say, well, this is the introductory sentence very similar to this. Right. And then in that case, it could be, well, maybe we'll just switch from that and say it in this phrase. Again, that starts to go to a space that I can't. I don't know enough about.
How does everybody feel?
Comfortable with getting feedback from Sean?
I just got a question on this one, and again, it might be similar to the last time, but maybe it better fits the policy. But under 3A and 3B, it seems like the policy covers harassment, including like social media, online platforms, electronic devices. I just didn't know if we needed to be more clear there, or if we all felt like it already was clear. But again, I'm remembering another policy that's coming up that seemed to address it a little more. Just basically giving examples of conduct, and there's the verbal, the visual, the written, the physical. You know, they do say text, it says electronic mail, text message on the visual and written. So I think it's covered in there, but
So you think it's too vague? Is that?
I'm just asking kind of for clear what everyone thinks. If we think there's enough there, it does also say or any other similar behavior, which
Right.
kind of is a sweeping statement. I feel like that covers that.
I think we have value in keeping it really broad like that for new things that come up.
Right. Because it's always changing.
And that way, there's, this kind of gives touch points within the concept, but leaves it broad enough that new technology, if we're, TikTok, right? Or there's different ways that may not be described, but
I just didn't see like social media specifically, but, you know, talking about text, mail, but then it does say, or any other medium. So maybe that's an
Yeah.
example of what he was talking about, of keeping it not as specific, but enough that it's covered.
yeah, I think because we'd be changing it constantly.
Right.
And it has the general concept. Subject another person to sexually suggestive, pornographic, or obscene images, text, or cartoons, including by these ways. So it's kind of having, and if that way is not, the list is not reclusive to that list, it's written in a way that says these are examples of, but it could be others. It's really the topic, it's what's being communicated, it's really what you're communicating now. The mechanism of communication. But I see what you're saying. So sometimes it helps people when they're reading that they have something that they're familiar with in the world that they're in, like social media, which is a rather broad term in itself.
So we could add in paragraph 3B, social media.
Platforms, I mean, it's like kind of never ending, right?
That's okay. So including by electronic mail, text message.
I think social media is a fair touch point in today's current environment. And
So is there any other media?
and issues.
Support having social media in there just because of where the kids are at, where families are at, where society is at with understanding of those platforms.
I think sometimes too, it just helps, like you said, Tim, to give context when you're reading it, like, oh, that too, you know, versus any of the mediums. Well, it covers a lot. I mean, I think we should still have or any of the mediums, but.
I can add that and add the introductory statement.
It would be interesting as well to see what Truman says about that because this is just a thought and they're the lawyers, they can provide feedback on that. But I'm thinking about when those things take place and the district's role in being like a physical, in a certain time frame kind of space. So I wouldn't mind just asking for the sake of getting perspective on that.
I mean, what happens if it's in an outside platform that is not an official social media of the school?
In general, if it has an impact on the school environment, it counts, whether it's on
That's
campus
what I
or
know.
off campus.
So it does
There's a lot
add
of
a
case
little
law
bit
that's.
protection, like explicit protection to our personnel.
Anything else for 4102?
Just along that line, this does not preclude or limit where these activities can stay.
Yeah.
We don't say, this is only for,
Yeah. And I do think, I don't remember because they're older, but there is a social media policy that is specific to social media as well.
Okay, so 4103, whistleblowers protection.
That's the second one that I had for the night in introductory paragraph. I liked how the whole district was doing it, so I just literally copy pasted their introduction to it. Again, it's not a deal breaker for me, but
Do not read that.
yeah, I'm going to do that. Yeah. The Board of Education expects all of its employees to be honest and ethical in their conduct and to comply with applicable state and federal law, board policies, and administrative guidelines. So this is where I don't know if we have administrative guidelines, so after what you just told us, maybe we switch that wording to match our government. And then they go on to say, it is the responsibility of an employee who is aware of conduct on the part of any board member or employee that possibly violates. And then they go into the jargony section that we already have.
do we not already have a policy regarding, open teacher state? There's something in here regarding their overall behavior and expectations of behavior within this. And if that is the case, which has those same concepts, we could say, as referenced in policy, so-and-so,
Yeah.
making that cross-linkage. So I'm almost sure there's something in here regarding the integrity and operations of our staff.
I don't remember. But it was the same idea, just softening, it's not even softening, I think it's just, yeah, it's just a slight switch of tone from the beginning.
Thoughts on that suggestion?
I like the idea of maybe referring back, but as mentioned in
Otherwise, we're good with that. So we'll move on to 4104, employee complaint procedure.
I thought that was pretty straightforward.
Any questions or suggestions?
the only comment here was just the clarification that the president, vice president are the school, right? Just
Yes, wording, adding, so let me find where is that.
Yeah, just so people were really clear that it was who the president, I mean, to us it seemed clear, but just for people reading it, it's the board, right? It's referred to the board president.
Yeah, I guess I'm just not sure what section.
I'm looking for it, I can't find it, but I'll get there. Oh, it is question section F. B, oh no, yeah, under F, it states, if the superintendent is the respondent or complainant, an appeal must be filed with the president. And then president of the school board, I think is what the,
Okay, and I see it's also in E2, so just wanted clarification that it's the president and vice president of the school board.
yeah.
Something else we may want to check is something like definitions in the beginning that they may define in that section also. But I agree to clarify, it doesn't have to clarify, just to make sure that it's cross-linked. Again, if someone's looking at it, they're just looking at this policy.
Right.
That was it, like, and they might not refer back, yeah.
Okay. Anything else for 4104? There's a sample complainant form there. 4104F. And then we move on to 4105, workplace accommodations for employees and applicants with disabilities.
So this is one where Jessica mentioned she might like an introductory sentence to kind of do the same thing. She didn't provide an example. So maybe we can do something similar.
So is there an introductory sentence that we've used previously that you think would apply?
Well, I mean, this one actually, the one that we have in 4102, would work. So I can read it again. MPPS is committed to providing all personnel with a working environment in which all members of the school community are treated with respect. So that would work for disabilities.
That seem good to everyone?
See everyone nodding?
All right, we'll end that. Okay, 4106 FMLA.
Can I give a suggestion? That statement, it's a therefore, the district complies with.
Yeah.
The reason why that might help with the respect and the values of the word respect, make it an introductory clause, which has this meaning. Because then it goes on to say that what this says. Therefore, does that make sense? That might be a way to do some of these things. I don't know. Clause.
4106, doesn't look like there's any comments. Are we good with FMLA? This is very scripted for us.
Nope. I'm good.
So much more about FMLA after reading all of that.
Isn't it interesting?
That was, yes, I spent a long time reading this one. I agree.
Okay. Okay, then we'll move on to 4107, which is military leave. And again, it's the identification maybe of the employment compliance officer. Just looking for that section. But I think maybe, so it looks like that would probably most likely be F3, and where it says an employee must immediately contact the employment compliance officer if the employee believes the district has violated a law or this policy. So I could just use the language from the earlier policy that says the employee must contact the superintendent or the employee. Would that be okay?
I like that.
Okay. 4108, union activity and representation. Seemed okay? Okay. 4109, break time for nursing mothers.
I did have a comment when I read this, because those breaks are unpaid breaks. Is it possible to extend this from 1 to 2 years? And the reason why I ask that is the American Academy of Pediatrics and the World Health Organization have a recommendation on breastfeeding, and they talk about exclusively breastfeeding for 6 months, but up to 2 years or longer. And I think that extending it to 2 years is a wise return on investment for the students that we're going to eventually have in the district.
So we would say that is shielded from view and free from intrusion by coworkers and the public for up to 2 years, or just say 2 years after the child's birth?
I was thinking up to 2 years.
Up to 2 years.
That sounds good. I'm actually reading it right now, and I don't know if it, we should. I know the kind of district we are, and I'm guessing that if someone requests, we make sure that the accommodation is close by. But in a lot of workplaces, the accommodation provided is so unpractical that it kind of makes it not a useful policy. If the place provided is a 15-minute walk, right? It kind of moves. It becomes so inconvenient. It's hard. It made me think of, can we add, locate it close by without necessarily putting a distance, because I know it gets hard. It was
How would we define close?
well, I know, within reasonable distance. I mean, is that too vague?
That's
You
a
could make it
litigious word.
subjective. Like, I think, I don't know, I keep thinking like, what's reasonable for some might not be reasonable for
Within the
all.
same building? Do that?
Well, if you look at it, most of these are employees who are in a school building. So each building would have an accommodation. So I doubt that anything would really be that far in the building.
Right.
Not like on campus or other larger, where, where they're all located within a building, and those buildings probably have some kind of facility that
Now, our buildings are not that big,
Our
so,
buildings are not.
I mean, so yeah, it is probably unnecessary. Okay, I'm good.
Okay. 4110, reimbursement.
So the only comment that I had, and I agree with the policy, and I'm not fighting it, because I fall guilty to this policy. In the administrative guidelines, is that the receipts would say on it that there were alcohol, but not getting reimbursed for alcohol. not to change the policy, but to change the practice and the administrative guideline. Just because of the times that burden that puts on restaurants to have multiple sales receipts when we're at a conference or someone's out traveling. Just a thought. Again, the policy is, and I agree with the policy, not to reimburse for alcohol, which I agree with. I'm just asking for our modifications to the administrative component of it. So it would be one receipt sufficient instead of, instead of having the restaurant create multiple receipts. That makes sense, being clear.
So Ginger, is that an audit issue?
I don't believe so, but I can ask our auditors. It just, we have to adhere to our guidelines. But I'll get clarification on that.
Just for logistics, really it's a logistics thing in a restaurant. So I'm not asking for any modifications to the policy. Just leeway that it's.
Any other questions about 4110? Professional development. And then 4112, extracurricular employees or volunteers.
Just need some clarification on that definition as I was reading it. Is the title athletic director exempt from being considered an extracurricular employee? So how is that?
I wouldn't think it's exempt. But I wouldn't view our athletic director as being employed in extracurricular activities. I mean, he'd be a regular employee, just like any other administrator, any teacher.
Right, I agree with that. I just think it makes it sound like the way the policy is written. If you don't understand how the title is differentiated, I'm not saying to put a clause in there otherwise, but just for my own understanding, how is it not?
So, but if it would be the athletic director, it would be teachers and anyone else, right? That would be employed in the role as a coach, advisor, or
So the athletic director is not specifically needed in the policy, right?
right. But neither is a teacher or another school staff member that would serve in the role as an extracurricular.
Because technically the athletic director could be a head of a club, right? Or other extracurricular activity that under the schedule would get reimbursed, not just.
So what the purpose that I read this policy, and then Ginger, maybe you guys can help me, is that we have many district employees that are involved in extracurricular programming that do not turn in a weekly timesheet, and the time that they spend does not count for or against the kind of the 40-hour work week. So they're not earning any overtime wages from being a part of that extracurricular activity because it's a stipend-based activity. So if you are the coach of a sport, or if you are the advisor of student senate, you are hired for that position based upon a preset stipend. So it doesn't matter if you spend 20 hours or 200 hours with the activity, you receive a preset stipend. And I view this policy as allowing us to pay those folks a stipend and not an hourly rate. Does that make sense?
That totally clarifies it for me, actually.
Is that how you guys see it as well? So we'll have, for example, if we may have a special education paraprofessional that also works on, they'll ride home on a bus a couple of nights a week and be a bus attendant. We're very careful that we don't go over 40 hours a week for someone. We can't regularly schedule an employee for 40 hours a week. It might happen and then we pay them overtime, but we can't have that consistently be a regular part of their schedule. This is saying that those activities are separate from that calculation and therefore they receive a stipend for it that's a predetermined amount. And again, regardless of the amount of time they spend, they know they're getting that stipend. And we can pay them at the end of the activity We can pay them, throughout the activity. We sort of, depending on when they complete the paperwork, that's when we would pay them for that.
That clarifies it, maybe, and just because of our unique, and this isn't just me, I love our athletic directors.
Yeah.
It was just confusing because it's athletic director / football coach. And so then when I was reading this policy, I was trying to put that in a context on how that would play out. But with that new information, that separates it from so I understand.
It does make me confused about the second paragraph, last sentence. Volunteer stipends must be limited to expenses incurred.
Right. So we have some coaches that are not paid. So an assistant coach. So that there are coaching, there are volunteers. So they, the only payment they may receive may be a reimbursement, which they wouldn't, because we don't reimburse people. But there's not going to be. There will be coaches that are part of our programs that are not receiving any payment because they know going into it again that they're a volunteer for that program.
So my misunderstanding is paragraph 1 is persons employed by us in these things. Paragraph 2 is volunteers.
Right.
That makes more sense.
Does that help? Okay. Any other questions about the 41 items?
We spent 40 minutes. You're under an hour, just to say.
We're going to trust Wileen and her clock on that one, right, you guys?
We started at 7:30.
Okay, so then if we go back, just to wrap up our policy discussion, it's not completely done yet. We want to revisit the 3 policies that we talked about at our last meeting. So first, so our first policy is policy 1301, and that is the policy in regards to creation, amendment, and posting of policies. And the board opted to change the language so that we would say we would adopt or amend any policy after 2 readings. True recommended only 1 reading. We did review that with Lucas and with the policy folks at True, and they did say that policy is just fine for us. So we can choose a higher standard, so that means that we would be able to do that. So that was policy 1301.
I just wondered on that.
Yes.
Because we changed the one part, do we then need to change the next line that says, unless the law requires more than 1 reading, or we're already doing 2? Do we need to change that to 2?
Well, so the law specifically requires 2 readings for the anti-bullying policy. So I don't know, I think we're probably still going to leave that at 1, but I would leave that.
I just want to think about it, it highlights that there are certain laws that have certain policy expectations. Because there could be, I don't know if there's any others besides that.
That's the only one that I'm aware of.
And I guess too, because it says we may adopt or amend after 2, unless it requires more. Yeah.
So to me, it addresses the may.
Yeah.
So that,
It's
not like it was
a
on,
statute,
right,
you know.
so that's why I didn't.
Okay. The next one then is 5101, and I spoke with Dan Martin, who is an attorney that focuses on student rights, and Dan really liked these changes, agreed with them, understood that we encourage student expression, and thought that was just fine. So he didn't have any issues or concerns with 5101. And then the next policy, you'll notice that I've highlighted a couple of things here in 5103. So in theory, Dan thought that these adjustments were fine. He thought that they would be okay, but I think under the umbrella of when Ray mentioned this evening unintended consequences, Dan wanted to make sure that we were clear on what could potentially be unintended consequences. So in the first paragraph, the section that I highlighted, person or intimate personal belongings, he thought that those 2 things could be subject to interpretation. So what is an intimate personal belonging? His interpretation was that could be a purse or a handbag, or it could be a wallet, or what would we define as an intimate personal belonging? His other concern was unintended consequences when we say that we would make sure that the search was conducted by a person of the student's same gender. He wanted to make sure that we were prepared to accommodate the needs of transgender students, also non-binary students. So he said, what would you do in a situation where you have a non-binary student? Do you have a non-binary administrator that could perform the search? Said, exactly. She said, if not, you run the risk of violating your own board policy. So in the second paragraph, I highlighted that second sentence because from Dan's perspective, that sentence provides the same intent of the additional sentence that we added. So he said that the search was reasonable and that it is not excessively intrusive in light of the student's age and sex and the nature of the infraction. So we talked quite a bit about the idea of could we interchange the word sex for gender? So still, instead of saying, so their reference again to sex would be the sex of the student at birth. When we say gender, we would then open ourselves up to the possibility of a transgender or non-binary student, but it would give us more flexibility with that. We also wanted to make sure that you all were clear that towards the very bottom of this policy, of course, all strip searches are strictly prohibited, right? So he wanted to make sure that everyone fully read that policy and understood that. So again, he's fine with us adopting these changes to this policy, understanding the caution that he provides, that there could be some pieces that are unclear, and that he felt as though perhaps our intent was addressed in that second sentence in the second paragraph. Third sentence in the second paragraph.
So was the intimate personal belongings our language?
Yes, I'm sorry, thank you, that's a great question. The language in red is the language that we agreed upon at last week's board meeting, or our last board meeting, and that's what I sent to them. So we weren't deleting anything from the policy, we just wanted to add that sentence.
Can we remove the word intimate? So student's person or personal belongings. Was it the word intimate?
I know, I think it's the idea of an intimate personal belonging, what would that mean? But I mean, we could remove that.
I really do think though that even by removing intimate, we still open ourselves up to the idea of non-binary. Like I think we open ourselves up to the gender specific. So yeah, I think having that piece is what's really kind of makes this a dangerous thing that we would need to tiptoe around.
Not dangerous, but inconvenient.
Yeah. Well,
systems put into place to be able to accommodate.
And we state instead of shall that, we will, like they will be investing. If there was another policy would say that to the best of our possibilities we'll do that.
To soften that language a little bit to say
So that way,
to the best of our
try,
ability.
but then we also know that that might not always be possible. And we're shaking your head no.
You're adding a lot of vague terms, so how do you tell someone to implement something that's so vague? When was it to the best of our ability? Was that your best of ability, or was that just your best of ability at the moment? Or was that, what is your procedure? What did you do to make the determination? Who made the determination? Right, so again, it opens things up.
We did
Now,
have
I
it.
even tried to get rid of the idea of the yellow highlight, which is person or intimate personal belongings, to say, a search of a student will be conducted by a person of the student's gender in the presence of other staff member of that gender. Because some people think the backpack's intimate personal, or their car is intimate personal,
Well, that makes sense. So we can get rid of all the yellow stuff.
or at least that under the red part.
Yeah.
But still, we have this gender. What do we plan on implementing when a second grader, third grader, fourth grader, middle schooler, well, we wouldn't necessarily have staff And would the process be, please determine, let us know what your preferred gender is before we begin this intimidating process? Well, I was frightened, I didn't want to be honest, I didn't want anyone to know. I know.
I think it could detract too from what's happening in the room. Can I talk about
Yeah, we
that?
talked about it last time.
This is happening at a rapid decision-making time. So is there a way that we can help with that, not slow down the process, especially with safety? I also wonder though too, just if we start with the first part, the search of a student shall be conducted. Do we need to have something about belongings too? Because it might not just be of the students, but of the possession.
That suggestion, I believe, came from me, and it came from another academic that I look at the version of the district was using.
I think the phrase search of a student and the student's belongings is broad enough. I think it opens up the ability for us to implement procedures on a more broad than limits.
I'm really conflicted on, because I hear what Lillian is saying, but where my head doesn't go is not to the convenience part. My head goes to the outing of a student who isn't there yet. So we're going to maybe inadvertently out a student who's not ready to be outed. So directly to the student, not the convenience of the staff and not the other things that we've discussed here, putting the student at the center of all of this. That's where my mind goes, and I just needed to say that.
How about looking at it this way, say, and I think this is the procedure, there's always two administrators when something's searched. So that's our procedure. There's always two administrators performing this search, is what the word is. Could we say, whenever there needs to be two administrators of two different genders or two different sexes there at the same time to counteract?
But what about in the younger buildings that don't have administrators of two different, like with this hold up process? I know we're talking about primarily middle and high school when we think about it, we do have administrators.
Well, actually, maybe I should correct it. It says school official.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
To be honest, maybe say two school officials of different genders.
I wonder then too, though, back to what Melissa said, I mean, that's assuming that all of our school officials are open and out about their gender assignment. I don't know, is that slippery? You know, I mean, because I hear what Melissa's saying about students, and I'm thinking about it too when it comes to staffing as well. I mean, is it too much to label anyone with any gender at any age?
I mean, I don't know, maybe just, just stating, because I didn't know that was a standard procedure to always have two. Maybe just stating the fact that there will be two officials, and if possible, of two different sexes, and then we just leave it at that. So we keep the search of the students and the students' belonging shall be conducted by two school officials, if possible.
Conducted while two school officials.
Yes. Conducted by two school
Because
officials.
it could also be conducted by the police, right? But as long, we always want to have two school officials in that space. That protects our employees also.
Yeah, that's exactly, I mean, it protects both sides to state this too, and then we forget about the gender.
So help me here. So the search of a student's person or personal belongings, we're going to take the word advancement out? Or no?
Tim's suggestion was to say the search of the students
So take all the yellow.
or their belongings. Is that what you said?
Well, in the first sentence, it says student and the student's belongings are followed under this policy.
Okay. Just restating that.
How about say this search would be conducted by two school officials?
Just
So
said
we're
that.
playing.
Oh, I
with
see, it's
this,
right above in the sentence above.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we just take the red language and just say this search would be conducted by two school officials.
Okay, so this search shall be conducted while two school officials are present.
Is that a period, or do we want to put
the presence of 2 school officials.
And then do we want to, I guess I don't know where to go with the gender piece.
Okay, putting, if possible, off to different sexes. Give it up. I mean, we can leave it out and just say 2 officials is okay, and that's fine.
Right, for the sake of not contradicting our other policies, right? Remember how we were saying we're trying not to, if we're not discriminating, and we don't want people to have to share something they don't know. And do we have a definition for school officials? I mean, is that just administrators? Do we know?
I think that's defined in the definition section. Yeah. School official, yeah, I believe it is.
I recommend they have a period and not putting anything sexist in there.
Yeah, we could cross, I mean, and by 2.
Because we as a rule would have, we need to allow our staff to be and function in a way that they can actually function. And that qualifier would add confusion or stop moving, sorry, that's just what I'm saying, keeping it broad. I understand that what you were trying to achieve here, and I understand that.
I mean, and you know, I want to shoot best, good intent, right?
Yeah.
I mean, my head does go to, but there's no reason to expect that. Can we read that one more time?
Yes, yes, so it would say, school officials may search a student and the student's belonging. They have a reasonable suspicion that the search will reveal contraband or evidence of violation of law, board policy, or rule. This search will be conducted in the presence of 2 school officials.
I think that's good, because don't forget the part that we highlighted below, which says, a search is reasonable in scope when the measures used are reasonably related to the search objectives and are not excessively intrusive in light of the student's age, sex, and the nature of the infraction. So that's some nice qualifiers that can help give guidance for all the options. But we have the protections of the 2 officials being in this space.
But for me, it's hard to wrap my head around what does that mean? Like, it's not excessively intrusive, and like that gets targeting, and I'm having a hard time picturing what does that mean. So
Okay.
that was maybe why I was putting things above what I like to.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see how you got where you got. So.
How do we feel? So then I have another question. I don't know what a strip search is. Do we explain what it is, or?
I mean, a strip search would be when a student would be required to remove their clothing.
All clothing, okay. So some removal of clothing is okay.
I mean, we might ask a student to take off a jacket or something like that.
That was
or,
my assumption.
Or shoes. There's something not so good in shoes, but.
Thank you.
So what I could do, given, I mean, this is still kind of unsure, I could write this up, prepare it, send it back to Dan Martin, have him review it again, and then I can put it back on our agenda again to talk about in 2 weeks.
So also,
This particular policy, I think the other 2, we could probably move on this evening.
historically speaking, when we've had administrators who don't know how far, they usually completely stop and call the police in. And the police do not follow these policies, they follow their own policies, and they do their own procedures at that point. And so, I think that if there's questions, fears, concerns, I think most administrators know that we need to call these services your officer. They can take the full ownership.
Did you get your hour, really?
By 1 minute,
Oh, boy.
not quite.
And any other questions about policies for this evening? Okay. And the last thing I wanted to mention on my report this evening is just some of our upcoming, I know, sorry. It's touchy, Tim. Is our upcoming fall celebrations. I think Mount Pleasant High School did a really nice job of talking about Orange Shirt Day. We're really excited to celebrate Orange Shirt Day in conjunction with Indigenous Peoples Day, largely because This year, Orange Shirt Day was on a Saturday. If we back that up, that would have been our homecoming Friday. And so, in talking with our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force, we determined that October 9th would be a great day to celebrate both holidays. So we're looking forward to that. There's different activities planned at every building to recognize and honor Orange Shirt Day and then also celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day. So that's a great celebration that will happen next Monday, October 9th. The other just festival or celebration that I wanted to make sure you all were aware of is our Fall Fun and Flannel Day, which we are going to celebrate on Tuesday, October 31st. Just to read this flyer for you, in case you aren't able to read it, in an effort to shift our focus toward community building, equity, and the inclusion of all students. Our goal is to celebrate through the fall festivities on October 31st. This will facilitate and foster a sense of belonging, partnership with all of our students, families, and staff. And our buildings have started to share this information with families today. I did email this along with information on Orange Shirt and Indigenous Peoples Day to all of our families this evening as well, so that everyone knows that these events are happening and that more information and more specific information will be shared with them with their families. So the celebrations look a little different at every building. Some of our buildings are doing some of their time-honored traditions like going to a movie on October 31st. Others will do classroom parties and events in the building. So everyone has a slightly different take on it. But the idea is just that we're celebrating a fall festival kind of day for the entire district. Does anyone have any questions about that?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course.
The parade?
So our schools will likely not be doing parades, as where our students will likely not be dressing up in the traditional Halloween costumes like they have before. So there likely won't be parades. Yeah. So one thing that I have noticed, Kevin and I were just talking about this today, the number of community-based events that are really focused on parades and trunk or treating and all those kinds of things. I feel like we've had sort of an explosion of all those events, and we're sharing all those events with our buildings and our families so that they're sure to be able to take part in and enjoy all the wide variety of community opportunities that they'll still have. And that is my report for tonight.
Thank you, Jennifer. And even though I know it takes us time, I really do appreciate the deep dive that we're doing in policy. So I appreciate everyone's patience and willingness to work on, even if it's word by word. I think that work is incredibly important. And it was nice to hear it from Troon as well, that they really thought this was really the way to approach policy work. So I thought that was a good kind of confirmation that we're doing the right thing.
He was actually really excited when I called him last week about it.
Oh, we like it. All right, this moves us into correspondence. We did not receive any correspondence to the board. And so we now have our citizens' request to address the board. And we have been held today. Can you lift the microphone?
Like this?
Perfect.
Okay, I've never done this before, so I apologize in advance. I'd like to start off by saying my name is Gavin Hunt, I'm deputy here at MPPS. Tonight, I don't know if this is how it works, but I'd just like to talk about something that it's not really big, no one really notices as much, but I've noticed it and a couple of my friends have. It's the outside food policy. I believe that we shouldn't allow deliveries here. I don't think that's a good idea because it would create chaos. But what I do think is I got in trouble really badly because I forgot my lunch, and my mom brought me lunch from Subway one time and brought it to me because she was nice enough to just get Subway. And I got in a lot of trouble for that apparently with the office, and they told me that wasn't allowed, and I just kind of let it go. I did it again. But also another time, I have had this with multiple of my other friends. So I went to braces, and I know what my other friends have, and we get our extenders or braces fixed, and it would be painful for our mouths. So we would only be able to have a smoothie or a protein shake, and it we still counted it as outside food. And they'd make us drink it in the office before we could go to class. So wasting my class time or wasting my lunch time. And I just thought that wasn't really that great. And I know like other schools, like St. Louis is open campus, and then Alma allows outside foods to come in, but not like delivery wise. So I just thought it was just too extensive at that point. It's not happening.
We leave that out on the public comment side. This brings us to our consent agenda. So we have to approve the minutes of the September 18, 2023 minutes. Is there a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have a few things to approve. The first one is to approve Thomas' proposed Eagle Scout project.
So moved.
Here.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Look forward to seeing it. Thank you, everybody. And then we, I think, can approve the two policies whose language was approved by True without too many problems. The first one is approval of policy 1301.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And then we have the approval of the policy 5101. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And I think we'll keep 5103 for next time.
I move that we table approval of policy of 5103 to modifications to language and discussed.
Is there a motion to approve the table?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. And then last, we have a resignation tonight too.
Yes, good evening. We would like to ask the board to accept the resignation of middle school teacher Natasha Menard.
Is there a motion to approve the resignation?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, everybody. And I believe that leads us to our Board of Education discussion. Anything you'd like to talk about tonight?
She mentioned it, and maybe Jennifer mentioned earlier, just a great turnout for the homecoming parade. That was so fun, just to see everyone, and just such a great turnout, and everyone seemed to enjoy themselves, and same with the homecoming game as well, but
I was really going to visit, and I love seeing all your faces on those pictures.
And also I can acknowledge that the entire district, all of the schools in the entire district, so it wasn't just a high school event, it was a school district event, and I really appreciate that. I thought it was the cutest thing ever when we came around the corner and we met up at the back end of the parade, and then there was this big gap, and I'm like, what happened? And all of a sudden you see these little kindergartners, first graders behind bottles, walking fast, trying to walk fast, trying to keep up. It was very, very cute. So I appreciate the work that it takes from all the administrators and the families in the community to have that be a community line. So thank you.
I also like, that was very neat, the Oasis and Wave are also in the parade, and hope that that continues.
I want to commend the Mount Pleasant High School administrators for not just listening but hearing the feedback from the students. Came so prepared with their research and their things to thoughtfully respond to them, as well as comment on the homecoming events, like what an orchestration all of the events were, and all the time and energy that everybody put into making that a success.
If that's it, then I think this adjourns our meeting.